Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Standard Open in Indianapolis, brought to you by Ultimate Guard. I'm Nick Miller alongside Caleb Scherer, Storm Counter himself. You have figured out how to play Storm in Standard now.
Yep.
We have this, as soon as everyone saw Aether Flux Reservoir, they're like, all right, how can we break this card? To no one's surprise, you have figured out a deck that is going to find a way to play a bunch of spells and then kill your opponent.
Yep.
Talk about how you kind of came to this deck, and for reference, it is a 4-color, kind of Reservoir deck.
Yeah, so, well, basically I got my initial inspiration. Of course, seeing it at first, you think, oh, that's great, that's Storm, but you're probably like, okay, Wizards, they're not really going to let us play those broken things. But Frank Karsten posted a deck list last week that was blue and green that had like Oath of Nisses and stuff, and that was like kind of my starting point, and pretty much just devolved from there, just trying to get something way more consistent since that was kind of a rough draft. And really it's just been, trying to be like, okay, how do we consistently kill people on turn 6 by casting a bunch of spells?
Right, and this is it. So instead of running Oath of Nissa, you're kind of running 7 of these, as you call, Lay of the Land effects. We have Attune with Ether, fresh card from Kaladesh, and then of course Traverse, which you're not really using the Delirium on, you're just using these as ways to find your mana, because you have a bunch of colors of mana going on in this deck. Yeah,
exactly. And also by being able to run 7 of these, search for basic effects from Ley of the Land, I get to shave down to 18 lands as well. Since when we're, going off, the worst thing that can happen is casting like a Paradoxical Outcome, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, and, just drawing 4 lands off of it and being like, okay, so I just did nothing, bounced all my stuff, and don't even get to, kind of quote-unquote storm off again.
Right. Yeah, because the key part here is you're going to have a critical mass of spells, so you can't have a bunch of lands clogging up your draws. All right.
Yep.
So we're going to go on to the creature base here, and then we're going to talk about kind of all the rest of the combo. So we have Gluttonous Crane here and the Contraband Kingpin. So these are the 2 new cards, kind of filling the stalling role and kind of setting you up.
Exactly, yeah. These pretty much fill the role of either a 2 or a 3 drop, based on, what's going to happen to kind of stall out with against creature decks, but also to search for Reservoir itself, since letting you scry 1 on each artifact that we play. As we can see, we have 20, and we're casting them over and over and over, and then looking at top 4 impulses, insanely powerful.
Right.
So.
Right. So not only do you get to kind of find a piece and put it in your hand with the Crane, you also get to set up your future draws.
Exactly.
With the Kingpin here.
Yeah, and also it has the added utility of being a 2-spell. Gluttonous Crane is a quote-unquote 2-spell card on a combo turn as well.
Right. Not to mention the added effect of just being able to block early, so you get to just set up. Not to mention, Chapin wrote about this in his article this week, how good this card is. People are kind of overlooking, just the amount of life you're going to gain and how much, aggro you're going to stop with the 1/4.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, now let's get to the fun part of the deck. We have 8 0-mana spells. We have Bonesaw and Cathar's Shield floating around in this deck, and I can't imagine you're equipping them that often.
Oh no. Basically it's, just a completely free spell, and also being an artifact to get off of Gluttonous Crane, so it can be, 2 spells for 2 mana, or just, sometimes even, scrying early, and, actually the one equipped thing that's mostly useful is just putting it on the Contraband Kingpin, because then it kills all the X2s in the format and stuff like that while stalling out. They kind of function as your quote-unquote Lotus Petal and LED in this version. So
right. Right. We got to have the free spells if we're going to play Storm. And I guess, it'd be kind of cute to have, a Bonesaw on one of these creatures. Or maybe one of these Octopus we'll talk about later on. Now we have more cantrips here in the artifact form.
Yes.
Prophetic Prism and then the Metal Spinner's Puzzle Box. These are cards that are just artifacts that allow you to draw cards?
Exactly, yeah. I wanted to have kind of a critical mass, as you can see with most effects, having 7 to 8 of that, so, consistently see it since we don't have a bunch of tutors. And, this being 4 Prophetic Prism, kind of the easy include draws a card, and also being, kind of greedy with mana helps a lot. And then the Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot also helps with the grindy matchup, since you can also sacrifice it to gain life.
Right. So
not gain life, sorry, draw another card.
Draw more cards down the line. All right. So we have all these going. We have the Aether Flux Reservoir. Now the fun part.
Yeah.
We have Crusher Tingles. We saw this in Standard back in the day, pre-rotation, and now we also have Paradoxical Outcome. And this is where the things get going.
Yes, exactly. So basically, once you've cast either, so Crush of Tentacles being either, hey, a nice reset button because you can just cast a 0, bounce everything. I have an 8/8 on board, so deal with that, or it just blocks, then I'm fine with that. Or, as we can see here, again, kind of going back to the consistency, we have 8 bounce everything effects, since even after an Aetherflux Reservoir, then, we'll have like 6 mana, you have nothing, I have an 8/8, so we'll go back to parity, and then I just jam all my stuff on the board and try to kill you again.
Okay. So we've talked about all the pieces. Of course, you have the Aether Hub here as well to fix your mana to kind of go along with the energy you're getting from Attune with Aether. Take us through like a game, and how you kill and how early you can kill and kind of that type of stuff.
Kind of like as far as like the games, usually you'll want to play a green source on turn 1 to cast one of your Lay of the Land effects on average. And then kind of chain that off into either one of your cogs with Prism or Puzzle Knot, and then you can cast a Kingpin or Crane, and then just kind of do that for the first 3 to up to like turn 4. Obviously, if you could cast a Reservoir, that'd be great, but we can't expect to always have it on 4. So by turn 6, we're kind of just clogging everything up is kind of the goal, with maybe a Crush of Tentacles on turn 5 there to reset a board against like the aggressive decks, which have become way more powerful in this format compared to the last time as well. And then what you'll do is you'll kind of go off with, on average, go off with Aetherflux Reservoir on like turn 6-ish, gain either 15 or 21 life based on 5 or 6 spells on average, and then just kind of do that. So you're like, kind of like a little engine that just goes up the hill a little bit, and you're like, okay, I'm still alive. And then I just keep doing that, since you have so many bounce effects and drawing these cards that eventually you'll just play about 9 spells, and like on turn, about 3 turns after that, and then just be able to pay off and kill them.
Right. So it doesn't matter if you don't get them in one turn.
Exactly.
You can keep kind of building to this turn where you have just gained so much life that they can no longer keep up with what they have on the board.
Exactly.
All right. Now let's move to the sideboard. You have your other Kingpin here, and then you have a bunch of red cards here. So you have 4 Radiant Flames to help with aggro, I have to assume, in the mountain that kind of fuels that.
Exactly. Yeah, so against like aggro, since we have kind of a weaker matchup, what we do is we get to shave kind of around and then jam in our mountain and the 4 Radiant Flames and the Contraband Kingpin. That's kind of our heavy sideboard matchup, since like the Crush of Tentacles bouncing a bunch of 1 mana cards. On your end it's great, but on their end not so much.
Right.
So, kind of a way to actually deal with that. And also, being an odd mana number, it's kind of nice, since in this deck you'll notice that basically everything's even casting cost except for these. That also is why they help to fit in as well. So kind of having that.
Okay. We have new cards here. Lost Legacy. This is kind of the slot everyone's kind of going to fight the Emrakul or the Elder Deep Fiends.
Yeah, exactly. That's precisely why it's there for Temurge, since, being this type of combo deck, we only get to sideboard on average about 4 cards. So, okay, 3 Lost Legacy, so I'm able to take your Deep Fiends or Emrakul based on what you're kind of, giving me the feel of you're doing that game, and that's kind of just for that matchup in particular.
Right, and do you feel kind of the Temur Emerge or the Emerge strategies in general are just, their plan is to kind of go bigger than you, and then if you just cut that out, they can't actually kind of, beat you?
Yeah, like pretty much their ideal strategy is like Deep Fiend you, and then be able to time it correctly to where they know that they can kill you with your Reservoir, since if you're short, then they just can cast all your spells and you gain the life, but you only gain like 20, so you can't even use it, so they literally just helped you, and that's what you would do anyway to survive an Emrakul attack. So if they don't time it right, you can actually just completely negate an Emrakul, which is nice.
Okay, let me read the Reservoir real quick, because I need to see if Emrakul allows them to kill you with your own spell. Target creature or player. So you have to fear that.
Oh yeah, that's exactly it. And then also like the fear of, out of some of those decks have summary dismissal, so you sometimes have to go over 100, since they can, in response, like, completely wipe the stack. So.
I can only hope we get to see that happen.
Oh yeah.
Of course, you got some more blue spells here. You got a bunch of counter spells between Dispel and then Invasive Surgery here are your ways to fight.
Exactly.
Disruption, I imagine?
Yeah, since in the format we have Fragmentize being, CMC 4 or less, exactly that. So we have 3 Invasive Surgery for if I think they're bringing in Artifact Hate, and then 3 Dispel kind of being the, hey, if you're more of a control-y, maybe you're going to board in counter spells for me, that type of deal. So basically just trying to have all my bases covered of artifact removal that's relevant in the format, counter spells, the creatures of Emrakul and that, and then also weenies.
So how long have you been working on this deck since, we saw all the pieces, and, how have the iterations of the decks come and gone?
So I built it as soon as I saw Karsten's article, like his version, just kind of sat down to get a feel of like, is this even like a thing? And it felt, obviously a very rough version since it was like, near the beginning, and basically been working on it ever since I was like, well, once I realized that it was like, okay, I think there's something here, like I have to jam this on week 1, just see if it can work.
All right. Karsten's a math guy, you're a math guy. Have you figured out the numbers? Like, is there anything you've tried to kind of put in the deck that you couldn't make work?
Basically, the only thing, I tried with, I know some people were also trying the like some more red cards, like Molten Nurseries and stuff, to like kind of ping creatures, or like just having a way to deal damage upstairs. Since there's also the 1/2 for 1 in a red that deals damage whenever an artifact enters the battlefield. But really, I've just been kind of happy of like not caring about actual power toughness boxes and having just 7 to 8 of everything is kind of my goal. Like I only have 4 Aether, the Reservoir, but everything else is like kind of a redundant copy of something else.
So the math checks out.
Yeah. Basically, it's like 7 or 8 of a card is when boom you get to like consistently think that you'll see it. So.
All right. Well, we got 4-color Reservoir. Yeah. We're gonna call it that for coverage purposes because it's a confusing looking deck, but we know deep down you're going to be bringing out the Storm counter, hopefully.
Oh, it'll be there.
All right, Caleb, thanks for joining me here in the Sideboard. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Indy.